Welcome to the Marketing Meeting podcast. And today I'm joined by Jessica Herrin. Jessica is the founder and CEO of Marklo, a campaign planning and analytics platform. Before Marklo, she built many businesses, successful e-commerce brands like Stella and Dot, Ever Skincare, and WeddingChannel.com. Welcome to the Marketing Meeting podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
We met at the e-commerce founders event. Great event, great speakers, and you were a speaker there. All the presentations I felt, excluding yours, I felt that I'm 100 years old and I'm alone and I'm missing out on so many things about AI. But when you take the stage, I feel, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not 100 years old. And your presentation gave me a way to think differently about AI. And also because you were sharing real views about AI, like the real struggles that real people have, not that everyone is missing out and we are so ahead of time. So thanks for that. And because it really helped me to look to the things in a different way. And today we're going to talk a lot about the future of e-commerce marketing and how AI is changing the way the marketing teams plan and execute. But before we start that, you built so many companies in the past, so many e-commerce brands in the past. And now you're building another one, which is actually not an e-commerce brand, but you're going to help e-commerce brands. Could you tell a little bit about this story for us?
Well, I started out in technology. So I started in enterprise software. I then went back to business school where I dropped out because I started running what became channel.com. I've always changed the name of a business multiple times, but we started as Dell and James. We merged with WeddingChannel.com. It got sold to the Knot. And that experience really was me learning that when a technology shift happens, it's going to change consumer behavior in the marketplace. And that creates a lot of opportunity for a business, right? So that was the dawn of Web 1.0. You could aggregate data. There was e-commerce was just born. So that was what the grounding was for what became Wedding Channel. After that, I had that experience of like raising a lot of venture capital and building this business. And I really paused in that moment and be like, what do I want to do next? I know that starting a business is so hard. It literally takes everything that a founder has. And you have to be passionate about it. It is your nights, it's your weekend. So are you soulfully connected to the mission of the company? And it was asking those questions that made me realize I wanted my next business to be very different. Very mission forward. And that was Stella Brands, which was using technology to modernize flexible work for women. I was taking the very old school industry of direct selling, tech enabling it, and building what became Stella Brands. That was jewelry. And we went on to do apparel and bags and a brand called Ever that was skincare. And all of that was for helping, flexible work. And we built a technology platform within that. And now Marklo is what comes next. And it's that through line of what I've always loved is finding a shift in technology that will make a great change in what is possible to build for a better consumer experience, and then empowering other people to live better, grow stronger with that. And that's what Marklo is doing this time for D2C brands, helping lean teams execute like much bigger companies. I'm so excited about kind of living in the future, figuring out what's missing, and then creating that thing that will help people get to that better reality.
I'm going to ask a lot of questions about Marklo because it's very interesting because you have already been in the DTC place yourself as a founder. Now you build the tool that other founders can use. So that's quite interesting for me. But before that, you built so many businesses. And what were some mistakes that you've done, rather than talking about the good things, but the mistakes that you've done along the way?
The good news is, one, if you introduce someone as a serial entrepreneur, all that really means is they have a lot of experience doing things they have no experience doing because you've been trying to create a new category or a new business. And so I've made every mistake in the book, everything on product, people, on, you name it. I think the ones that I've really learned from is I really learned not to overcapitalize a business, or you will just dilute things and have too many different parties with different interests around, the table, just really diluting your mission as well as the equity ownership. So I've really learned not to overcapitalize. I think from scarcity comes invention and value. So that, and then I think the other thing is try to find the kernel of a simple idea that can grow rather than complexity, rather than trying to get growth out of 5 different things. Like, can you do one thing bigger? So that's a mistake I've made that I've learned from as well.
I think I can chime into that also, the second one especially. We are in different business types, but like definitely like focusing on one thing rather than 5.
Yeah, amplify rather
Yeah.
than complicate. Yeah.
And in the Stella at that, the marketing tools, all the tools that you have been using, they were much more limited than what we had today. What were some of the tools and systems you were using at that era?
Well, I mean, honestly, I did not start Stella to become a technology company, truly.
Oh,
We actually looked to see if we could take e-commerce type functionality and point of sale type functionality that would work inside of at an in-home trunk show. And we looked to see if we could get modern training and sales, commission software and pull it into this direct sales industry. And the reality was it did not exist. So we ended up building it, having a tech team of 100 because we just couldn't find in the market what I felt was going to be a better business opportunity for the independent sellers that represented Stella, where they would have efficiency and thus earn higher dollars per hour, because it wasn't a very tech forward industry. So it ended up being that we ended up building a technology company that we sold that as well, because it was a hole in the market. So we built it out of necessity. The tools that were there were antiquated. And then when we were mostly a social selling company, right? Most of our revenue we sold through in-home trunk shows, right? That really changed with COVID. We had a direct to consumer business that was small that we then, have grown again outside of that. But we really had, just a wide variety of stacks that marketing tries to run on. And that's everything from helping you with inventory planning, merchandising and line planning, marketing calendaring. There's so much that goes into running a business. There's nothing to do with the channel that you're going to sell it in, but you're basically fundamentally deciding what product to target, what customer, with what creative assets, at what time, with what promotion, all of those different tools. So we used a whole bunch of things, and a lot of it was like a lot of manual, taped together stuff that I felt was the hole in the market that I really started Marklo to solve that problem.
I know that from the brands that I work with, or from the industry itself, I know that a lot of DTC companies, they are using Shopify, Klaviyo, some calendars, Google Sheets, and whatever you can find. And especially Shopify and Klaviyo are some of the biggest two that most of them are using. What are the things that work well with these platforms?
That's the great news, and why I think it's transformed entrepreneurship, and what makes me excited to create a business in this space, because I love the economic growth and empowerment that comes from micro entrepreneurship. And Shopify is in that business, right? So when I with Dell and James Wedding Channel, we started and spent $1 million in like 9 months building a shopping cart, because you did not have that. Right now, someone can sign up for free, 3-month, 90-day trial on a shopping cart that is so feature rich in a minute. It's remarkable, right? So Shopify dominates the space, is now grown into enterprise. It's a great tool. Klaviyo does that for email sending, right? And a bunch of other things that they consider their customer data platform, but really it's largely still what people think of it as an email platform. And those tools really work really well. But the problem is, like, that's kind of the plumbing that helps you execute. But there's a lot of other things that have to happen upstream from that, where the tools are still pretty nascent and immature for what I think they can do.
Teams have now more data, more tools, and now some of them are building their own tools as well. But you see a lot of marketing teams getting stuck, probably because of the fact that they are coming to you.
The problem is that it's the nature of marketing, right? It's that I think the channel and the consumer world has changed so much that it's not like you can just have a website and wait for people to show up and shop.
Yeah.
And the cost of customer acquisition is so high that you can't just like rely on paid and Facebook and Instagram and just have a website. You now need to be multi-channel, and you need to worry about, how am I going to get discovered by agents? What am I doing on social? And not just one social channel, but so many social channels, that it's turned marketers into like these very spread thin executors that just have to tab switch constantly and are being asked to put more content in more places for the same or less results. And that is like fundamentally broken. Even the concept that you're supposed to generate all this variety of creatives is not really the way to build a brand, own a customer, build a real lasting relationship for the long run. So I think that's where marketers are very fragmented. They also have tools where planning is in one place, execution is another, analytics is in a third, and there's no big picture. There's no learning, no company owned data on this concept of like, what is a marketing campaign? How is it performing? So I do think that there are marketers being asked to do more, but the tools have not caught up with really stepping back and saying, how can that workflow be smart? How do you use the humans for doing what humans do best? And how do you get rid of all the grind that nobody wants to do?
When I look to all of these platforms, because there's like a new platform almost coming up every single second. And then all of most of them are claiming that they are the all-in-one marketing platform, that you can do everything, planning, execution, and so on. How have you built Marklo? Because the difference of you is just you are coming from building brands and using all of these yourself. How do you build Marklo different than the others?
Well, I can tell you this. I have downloaded, installed, and tried all those platforms. And I will say there are some cool things out there that work, but there's amazing amount of over-promising and under-delivering that's going on in people's advertisement of what their products do. So there's a lot of uninstalling. And it almost feels like it's being made and promised by someone who does not operate a brand, does not own inventory. It's not trying to build something for long run profitability and growth. And I think that that's the disconnect, that there's the sort of a technology operator and then a brand operator is a very different mentality, like a merchant mindset, marketing mindset, very different. So one, we say this as a dev team all the time. I don't know how you would build this if you didn't have a live store and a real business to build it in. So we've built this with Stella and Dot. So I still own Stella and Dot. I don't operate it on a daily basis. I have a great team that does that, but I mean, we have built it for Stella and Dot. It is come from the mindset of an operator in order to do that. And I think that's why we're able to achieve great results. And oftentimes when we're talking to our pilot partners, their reaction will be like, you get it. You understand our pain. I'm like, yes, because we had to do that. We've done this for decades.
When you get a new project, how does the onboarding happens? Like you ask them to download all the data, and what are some of the things that you start tracking already at the day one?
Building Marklo, I knew it was very important, like to drive adoption, that the installation is almost instant and the time to value is like that. So a user doesn't really have to do, like if you own a Shopify store and you've installed an app, you know that it's basically like installing an app on your phone. Like you click a button, it downloads, and then it syncs, and then you're good to go. So there's nothing hard about doing that, because we connect all these different stacks. You click a bunch of buttons, like if it's Meta, if it's Google, if it's Klaviyo, if it's TikTok, so you connect all your data sources, but that takes, a few minutes. And then depending on how much data you have, there's, some syncing. But then as soon as you do that, you get instant insight. And I think that's the key. It's not asking the user to change their behavior or do something new to get a payoff. And the experience of onboarding is you look at this calendar view that actually answers the questions that would have taken teams of people like so much time to go get this data, right? Because nobody, I think the funny thing about marketing is you've got all these separate channels. So even if you're using Claude and you're tying in Klaviyo to Claude or Shopify Sidekick or whatever, they're disconnected. So if a brand owner wants to know what's driving revenue, and I want to know that so I can do more of what's driving revenue and do less of what's not. And you can see an email result, but you don't know what's driving revenue. You can see an ad, but you still don't know what's driving revenue. You need to see the whole picture together to know, did we do a product drop that day? Did we discount things that day? Did we, was it because we added new creative? Like you have to have the whole. So Marklo is the only thing that aggregates cross-channel data and pulls it into a campaign structure, like a campaign terminology of an actual marketer, not a single channel, so that you have that grouping to get real analytics and insights. So you see it on a calendar, you can look year over year, you hover over and actually see the email you sent, the social you posted, you see the performance. So you instantly get a clear understanding of what did we do on that day or that month and what products did we sell for what works. So the first thing it does is you install, is tell you what happened. Then you have instant ways to connect it with any planning tool that you have. So your marketing calendar, so that it then starts to give you useful suggestions on what to do next, because it knows what you're planning. It knows what you did. It knows the past performance. And since it's connected to Shopify, it knows your inventory. You can easily upload all your PO dates to know what product is arriving. So it takes all that consolidated view and then gives you an intelligent plan of how to drive revenue and profit growth.
Once the data is installed, and then it's interpreting the data. But the interesting part for me is like what to run next is a very, very hard thing to do. Did you train it with the knowledge that you have, or how did that part work?
Like really cracked engineers from Shopify, like Stanford engineers solving this problem for a year, because it's a very hard problem. But here is why I wanted to climb that hill. Your output is not going to be good. AI will not be actually intelligent unless it understands your business and the data is structured and put into a layer that sits on top of Claude or whatever model you're using, and understands your business holistically, and then gives your team a shared workflow for managing that campaign grouping, seeing the suggestions, giving it feedback, and making it smarter for your brand according to your brand rules. Meaning there's some brands that do a flash sale every day. There's some brands that will never be on sale. There's some brands that do a drop every week. There's some that do it once a quarter. So Marklo gives you a way for your team to train it for your brand and make it better. So yes, it's a hard problem to solve. So that's what we did. We structured campaign cross-channel data into a campaign concept. Then the suggestions I just did it this morning and was reviewing our suggested campaigns. And we do it in a way where I really believe this is how you'll have success with a tool like this, which is you're going to see this as a starter, right? There's still a human in the loop with judgment and discernment, but you're not going to start with a blank piece of paper. You're not going to start the task by logging into 5 platforms and looking for last year's calendar, digging something up in somebody's Slack or email. You're going to start with a clear picture. Then you're going to be given 4 ideas. And of those 4 ideas, you're going to be like, that one is not right for me. This one's interesting. I'm going to save it for later. These 2 are interesting. Let me tweak this one. It's 80% there. I'm going to swap one product. I'm going to swap one creative and go. So it's the speed at which you execute the right campaign and the insight, because you'll look at it and be like, oh, this is showing you past comparable campaigns. I can see that last year I actually ran the sale for 5 days. I can see I'm getting insights that competitors often do it for longer. I'm seeing the discount level is this versus that. So it's really pulling that data together and giving you suggestions. If you just go ask Claude, right? And even if it's hooked up to something else, or you ask Shopify Sidekick, what should I do? What campaign idea? It will tell you, well, your best performing campaign was your 4th of July sale. You should do that one. And you're like, well, it's not the 4th of July. That was a clearance. We can't just do that all the time. That would be a race to the bottom. We don't have that inventory anymore. Like it's the worst idea ever. Like it's irrelevant. So that's where coming from a background in technology, I'm like, you need a harness on top of all this data. You need to structure it. You need to train it like your best merchant and your best marketer and your best inventory planner. And then those people just need to be like a resource in your pocket to sit next to you, helping you do all this execution so the human can go way smarter and way faster.
Do you link it with the brand strategy approach? Because brands have guidelines, and then they also have a tone of voice, they have like colors and all the guidance that you can have visually, verbally, positioning wise. Is there a link that you built with Marklo?
Yes. So when you install Marklo, we build a capability section. And it's always, and to me, I trust the user sees what the system is doing. There's no black box. So in Marklo, you can see the capability section. We glean it. We look at your store, we look at your emails, and we can tell what your tone is. We can see that from your website, right? So we will tell you, this is who we think your target customer is. This is what we think your product categorization and strategy is. And then you can edit it if you want to. On all your brand planning intelligence, you will see a section there. You can chat with Marklo. So it's a typical chat interface, but you can also then edit what the chat is remembering. And it's a way like building a shared skills file or memory for your organization. And I find, especially for like founder-led brands, it makes the founder way less annoying and the team way more effective. Because like you would always be like, oh, we got to remember to do an unboxing. Like you can see it's the best performing thing on social, or we've got to give a shout out to our wholesale channel because we're trying to build that. Or we need, what I always say to my team, we can't neglect core. We own a lot of inventory in it. We got to be doing 4 core campaigns a month, not just sale and new. So all these brand rules, right? Marklo will remember. And then you'll ask it, audit my month. And it'll look and be like, well, you said you wanted to do 4 brand campaigns. You got 2. Here's 2 more that you haven't marketed in 8 weeks. Should we add that to the calendar? So it's just a way to check because a marketer has like this really long checklist, right? With all these channels, it's impossible for any human brain to like hold all this information. It's your helper doing that.
The next question that comes to my mind about like how the marketing organization is evolving, because as you said, like interpretation part is okay. Most of the things is handled by Marklo, but at the end of the day, you have to really pick and select what you want to run next, or what was the next product drop is coming up, and so on. How do you think the marketing organizations will be evolving in the next chapter?
I love looking at outside of the industry to see the barometer for what's about to happen next. And oftentimes there's McKinsey studies on it. You can look at the tech industry as a couple years ahead, right? Obviously they're the earliest adopters. They are the creators of the technology. And you can see inside of technology what's happening. Like when we're building a product, this is true for how we're building Marklo. There used to be very structured roles in product design. So software design. It would be a product manager. There would often be a project manager. There would be a engineer, and there'd be tiers of engineers, and there would be QA engineers, and then there'd be a product designer who would do the UX. There would be someone who would do user testing. All of those roles are converging because the tools are sort of superpowering a person, and the person's role becomes a lot about strategy, taste, and discernment. But the execution of all these specialized skills are starting to blend together, and you get a product builder. Marketing and retail will be the same thing. And we're building a platform like Marklo to help these lean teams become more efficient, to help junior people have more expertise, to help then that result of that is they can then execute in more channels and drive more revenue. So if you think about the adjacent skill sets like inventory planning and merchandising, because there's so much data analysis that happens in those, and marketing, right? That you'll start to find that one person can suddenly execute more in more channels than they were able to before. And I think with retail, the really thing that gets me excited is that AI should enable the best experience your customers ever have. It's not about trying to do the same thing with less people. It's about raising your ambition, having your grandest ambition, thinking about humans, like become more connected to the customer, produce a better product, are more creative with the brand, and then automating and taking expense out of the other tasks, right? That's really the promise of it. So if you're a forward-thinking founder or VP of marketing or director of marketing, you have to say to yourself, okay, what is now possible in this new world? What do I want my future to look like? What am I missing to operate in that future? How do I start laying that down for the organization, for my team, and migrating us there? And why I think that's so important is you can't sleep on it, because AI native companies are being born today and they are being built that way, and you will compete with them. And who will win? The customer will win. The customer always wins. So the company that is putting more of its efforts into the customer experience because they have reduced expense and they no longer lose speed in these other parts of the organization, they will win. So you have to really become that company. I always love the exercise of like, be the company that will put you out of business. And like, what does that one look like? And that's like goal to be more focused. And in terms of like, one of the things you said that I want to circle back to is the idea that companies are supposed to build these tools for themselves. I think that's the silliest thing I've ever heard of. And the idea that you're telling people whose genius in this world is making a product, being a brand builder, is to like go vibe code something that's like sitting on a Mac Mini and is silly. Like that's not what people should be doing. You should be using market-based tools, right? That I really think are coming to market now, right? That sort of enabling technology happen, applications are being built and commercialized. We're bringing them to market. Like you won't be needing to do this stuff on your own. This will start to become mainstream in like Q4 2026, 2027.
Interesting part on your presentation at e-commerce founders, that because they started with everyone vibe coding and everyone having their own iPads and their servers and custom agents and so on. Whereas you come to the stage and saying that you don't have to do vibe coding at all, maybe.
Yeah.
Not everyone needs to be a coder.
If your job is a forward deployed engineer, or you're an operations specialist trying to get efficiency with AI in a large company that can afford its own tech organization, but a lot of people in that room are product people. They're brand vendors, they're merchants. And I think you have to remember, like, I just think of technology as an enablement factor. AI is going to be like electricity. It's a utility. It is not going to be your source of differentiation. Your source of differentiation, as I keep saying, retailers need to do three things well. You have to design a unique product that serves a specific customer and have a real clear point of view. You need to manufacture and deliver it with excellence, right? And service it with excellence. And you need to have a soulful connection with the customer community. That, put all your time and energy into that. The rest of it, if you want to grow, you need to look at, like, how am I going to outsource that? How am I going to scale that? How am I going to get somebody else to worry about that so that I can do these things? So that's why when I see brand founders, I'm like, I don't think you should be vibe coding this. Like, that's not going to be the best outcome, right? We have this team of people like focused on nothing but that for a year, right? That's their full-time job. Like, let them do that job.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time on LinkedIn, I think I follow a lot of B2B marketers, although I'm most of the time a lot quite B2C focused. And everyone at one point started to vibe code, And I'm just like, am I doing something wrong? And I really spent a day working with cloud and some tools trying to understand what exactly should I be vibe coding. And I recognized that I should not at all do vibe coding, maybe.
I think we have to recognize, like, just know when you're being sold to and just make sure that you want to buy what you're being sold, right? So, like, the thing is, like, there's all these, like, thought leaders and experts selling courses telling you, like, Claude killed this and everybody's like, it's like clickbait, but it doesn't change, like, fundamental business, right? Fundamental business is that, like, you got a consumer and you got a producer, and the producer needs to produce something worth more than the dollar in the consumer's pocket to, like, get it, right? Like, so I just think that that's a lot of noise. It's a lot of hype. And what I don't like is making people less productive because they're fearful. I think it's the worst use of human time, right? Versus being like, hey, like, but we've got this. Like, let's think about what the right solution is and build that. So I think that it's important for people to learn and be tech fluid in tools. And it's important for people to understand what the capabilities are, because there's a lot of AI skeptics who will think that it won't change. Like, we'll always have to design our own emails 100% or it'll be off brand. That is just simply not true. I promise you, the very best brands, with the advancements that's coming in being able to understand your brand and generate it, that won't be true in the future, right? The idea that you will, like, so there's so many things that will change, and it's important to understand it, but you're not the builder of that tool.
A lot of things can be automated, probably even more every day. Is there anything that you think that we should try not to delegate to AI?
The brand magic, right? The brand magic, like, it's deciding okay, let me make the analogy of, like, if you're having a dinner party, right? Like, you, the human, should decide, like, what is this beautiful theme? I might help get a brainstorm partner, but ultimately it's my taste and my experience for my community that is going to feel human connected. Now, am I going to get, like, some help by, like, when I go to cook the dinner, I might buy, like, some onions pre-chopped, and, like, that makes me faster at making this meal and it's going to taste just the same. But I think you're trying to automate the grind, keep the magic, keep the taste, keep the discernment, keep the customer connection. One example, I spoke at a conference that was about AI automation and customer service. That is a perfect example. The last thing you want to do is never have a customer conversation, because you will then lose all the insight and discovery that comes from being with your customer. In fact, what you should do is automate all the times they're calling just to check their order status, because actually in that case, they don't want to talk to you either. It's faster for them. It's faster for you. But then get the time back and do experience events where you're selling to your customer in person so that you can discover their unmet needs, right? So use it the right way. Don't do it to get further to the customer. Do it to get closer to the customer.
The way the brands are operating are just about to change even further. It has changed over the many years, like the last 10 years, but it's going to change even further. Like, many things will be automated and so on, and many things will be produced by AI, like all the ads and even like the short form videos and so on. But on the customer side, how do you think the shopping experience would change? I mean, like, how would the next future customer will be shopping?
It's interesting because there's a lot of great innovation that's going on out there around online shopping and discovery. My friend Julie has a company called Daydream that's helping consumers, like sort of this idea of an AI stylist that's helping you find and discover brands. I think experiences like that will be more curated and probably a better experience than just going to Claude and ChatGPT and say, like, find me this, because you want it to be in an editorial environment. But for sure, consumers will start to, the front door to your store will be a lot of agents. And that is true for even things like emails, right? Because who reads the email first? It's not a customer just opening up in their app. It's first an agent that reads it and decides which folder it ends up in, and if the customer sees it. So I think that the brand mindset of, I have to prepare my store first for an agent, whether that's going to be because it shows up in another aggregated shopping experience like Daydream, or because it's on Nordstrom's and they've got an AI shopping experience, assistant, or it's on my own store. So I think the consumer experience will change, but all that means is, and you can see this with like the content that performs on social, is that people want more real, more human experience. They don't want, we are pack animals. We have pheromones. Like, we don't want to just like have bots talking to bots. Like, that is against the human nature. So people want more experience. You see this with dating apps, right? Like, that people are wanting more in real life experience, not just behind a screen. So I think that that will be, both things can be true simultaneously, that tech will advance discovery, but the human has to create more of an actual experience. I mean, what we've done with Stella and Dot, because it's used Marklo for efficiency and is really redirected, we've opened a retail store, right? So that's an example of like, wow, automate all this, then have the same people do the other job of expanding a channel, because you're no longer spending time on things that like add no value to the customer whatsoever.
Maybe I'm too old for the new generation and so on, but the thing is, there should be, as you said, like physical experience for a customer, especially for some of the things like, for example, jewelry. I want to touch it. I want to try it on. Maybe I don't want my agent to try it on my virtual version of that.
I remember saying this with Wedding Channel, which is interesting, is like, you're not going to just take away wedding planning. Like going to taste the cake together is part of the experience. Like, nobody wants you to automate that. Like, the going to try on the dress, like some people do order online, but a lot of people go and have that like whole experience. They've been dreaming about it their whole lives. Like, you're not supposed to get rid of the parts that make humans like it. And so for sure, trying on product and shopping in person, like, that's not going away.
As a final thought, since we are moving away from the platforms and so on, so what is next for Marklo?
We're in pilot now. We're launching officially in September, though you can get early access to it at marklo.ai, marklo.ai. And I really hope that in Q4, there should be no D2C brand that runs on Shopify that is not using our free version, which is a hindsight calendar. And that is like why my like ode and love note to all D2C brand operators. I'm like, let me just make this super affordable and accessible. It would be crazy not to have this app that gave you instant visibility, that fundamental belief. Because I've done a lot of these sort of coaching calls for other e-commerce counters. I'm very passionate about it, especially female founders building brands. Like, I love nothing more than seeing a dream go from a kitchen table into someone's business, and scaling, trying to go from like, 8 figures to 9 figures to multiple 9 figures. Like, I love helping people along that journey. And I'm like, this, you have to know, you have to understand your business. You have to be able to answer critical questions. So there's a whole framework there for Marklo that gives you the chat, the calendar, the prompt library that really gives your teams the right answers to the right questions that I know will drive business growth. So we've given that out there, and then you can, upgrade for a lot of the campaign planning and execution. So we're really just focused on our go-to-market and our launching. But ultimately, I see that the way that people operate will be radically different. It'll be proactive. You'll get suggestions on things like, hey, this SKU is slowed down in velocity. It's seasonal. You got 12 weeks of supply on hand and there's only 4 weeks left of the season. Should we market it to this segment? Here's a couple emails. What do you think? Yes. Right. And that will be how a brand, that's campaign strategy and planning, that's really very painful. And frankly, what I see that like, what I'm excited about fixing the most is most brands are under marketing. They're leaving revenue on the table. or they're not optimizing their cash conversion cycle because they're not turning their inventory. And I can look into all these brands and see this. I'm like, I can't help each one of them like as an individual consultant, but I can build a platform that will find the opportunity, that'll make it easy for the operator to find the opportunities. And so that's what we're focused on doing is Marklo will become more intelligent. It'll become more agentic and help people execute across more channels, and continue to superpower the human so that they can do what they love and drive growth.
Will there be a version that is not only for Shopify in the future?
Yeah, I actually have friends that run on, Commerce Cloud and things. And one friend is running a company that's over $1 billion. And I'm like, well, it's for lean teams to execute like bigger brands. She's like, so teams like mine, because we're a lean team. And she's like, there are bigger companies. And I'm like, you know what? I realize like every marketing team in the world feels under-resourced because it's mayhem, right? We're bringing clarity and creativity to that chaos. Mm-hmm. So, yes, we will go beyond the integrations that we have, certainly. But, there are 5 million brands on Shopify. So we certainly have a lot to address. That's why we started with the Shopify and Klaviyo integrations, because that is the lowest common denominator. But yes, we intend to do that for sure.
Jessica, thanks for joining me on this podcast. And the thing that I like about your style is that you were a great presenter, as I mentioned, because, you just showed a way that I was not alone, that I should not feel left out, because there is a vision to these things. And the second thing is that you were quite approachable and accessible. I mean, when I sent you the email, you just replied back in like 10 seconds. Although I don't expect every founder to reply back in 10 seconds, but I think that kind of shows the way how much you care, just like you cared for the brands that you built.
I'm very passionate about this. I think you have to be to build a company that works and to be
I agree.
And I do thank you very much. In my mind, when I've ever built a company, you see the future as you want it to be, and it becomes so obvious that it should work that way. And then with this one in particular, you realize like, well, I have a unique life experience that makes me prone to coming up with the right answer to this problem. So I have to do it. Like I have to make this thing because I know it'll be really helpful to a lot of people. And that makes me very passionate about getting the word out. So thank you for having me. I know that your market is just the right audience for this. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.